So this week we're looking to go back to a bit more of normality. In terms of gas prices, we're expecting largely unchanged on the day ahead market, and that's because we're seeing a largely improved supplies picture. So looking at UK continental shelf flows, they're expected to increase as production at a series of terminals is stepped up marginally at the start of this week. Also on top of that, medium range storage, we're actually approaching capacity levels there now, and going forward that means two things could potentially happen. One, we're going to see more withdrawals from storage, which is again going to see a bit of oversupply in the market. Or secondly, as we approach capacity levels and reach capacity, we're going to have the inability to store any more gas, and that means that gas is potentially going to sit loose on the system. In terms of power prices, again a bit more normality this week. So over the last few weeks we've seen very volatile day ahead prices, with prices moving up to as high as £160 per megawatt hour. This week, as I've said, a bit more back to normal. The reason for that is we're seeing really strong wind generation forecasts going forward, forecasting around 6 or 7 gigawatts by the middle of the week. What that's going to do is potentially see minimum supply margins increase and just allow a bit more system comfort. There is a risk associated with strong winds though, because a lot of turbines are turned off when generation is forecast as high as that, because turbines can't run safely at really strong wind speeds, and then we often see actual generation is much lower than forecast during those periods. Finally, looking at oil prices, this week we're potentially going to see some volatility. The reason for that is we've got the International Energy Forum over Monday through to Wednesday. What we're expecting here is a sideline meeting from OPEC members where they're potentially going to discuss production freeze going forward, and that has been providing a bit of a premium to oil prices over the last week or so. That culminated with actually a bit of a sell-off on Friday where prices significantly declined around 3%, and the reason for that is that this production freeze or potential production freeze expected by OPEC had a bit of a spanner thrown in the works as Saudi Arabia and Iran are failing to agree an initial agreement over what they'd freeze production at going forward. So day ahead prices for both gas and power are expected to soften this week. As we mentioned, we're expecting improved supply demand fundamentals, which is going to potentially facilitate those lower prices. Looking at seasonal prices, the risk is that they're going to increase this week. The main reason for that is we're approaching delivery on the Winter 16 contract, and with a lot of buyers out there, we're potentially going to see people entering the market to secure that contract, which is potentially going to see it increase. That could have a knock-on effect on seasons further out for both gas and power. Looking at oil market, as I've said, there's potential to see very volatile prices this week. The reason for that is we're going to see news coverage come out around this OPEC meeting, around the sidelines of the International Energy Forum. If we see any kind of sentiment around a possible production freeze, we're likely to see prices push up significantly. However, if that kind of falls over and we don't actually see any news around that, there's potential for prices to soften dramatically on the oil market. Prices are expected to remain range bound between 40 and 50, so anywhere in that range this week is plausible going forward. Customers looking to place fixed price contracts should consider doing it before the winter season starts. The reason for that is we're expecting to see some very volatile price action this winter. There's a number of reasons for that, so we're expecting very tight gas supply, as we've seen outages at rough storage. We're also seeing, we've seen the impact of minimum supply margins and their tightness during September, with prices pushing up as high as £160 per megawatt hour. The risk is that could become more regular during the winter season. So if you are looking to place a fixed price contract, you're better off doing that now before the winter, because any volatility we see on the prompt market is potentially going to impact seasonal prices further out. In terms of customers with flexible contracts, attitude to risk is key going into the Winter 16 season. If you are risk averse, I'd recommend taking all of the winter season and possibly summer 17 as well, just to mitigate any impact of prompt volatility. However, if you are more risky, there is potential downside during the Q4 season, particularly with gas, as we're expecting an influx of gas supply during Q4. However, I'd strongly urge closing out Q1, because that's where we're seeing a lot of the risk of potentially the impact of this rough outage, where the gas system is going to really struggle if we get a cold snap.